My name's Sean Jackson. I'm from Springboro, Pennsylvania, and my day job is actually antique motorcycles. I work out of my shop with a company called Competition Distributing. All right, so this is a 48 Panhead that we did. It's a custom frame, custom front end, pretty much everything on it was built here in-house. The front end we styled off of a 1930s DAH hill climber. The Harley used to actually produce back in the day, and it kind of carried that whole look up into the top end of the bike with the handlebars. They're like a buckhorn style bar. And we kept the springs so they're higher than the bar itself. They kept that traditional look. And then the frame itself is actually 304 stainless. It's all plate, 1/4 inch, and there's 3 sections to it. The overall backbone is a single tube style, and it bolts together with 2-inch standoffs. All the standoffs are aluminum. They're all satin polished, and then the hardware comes in from both sides to hold it together. And that's also 304 stainless. It's all just coated black oxide. The rear end is the 3rd section, and it's actually to beef up the back end of the bike to make it more rigid. That bolts in as a 3rd member, and we brought it back here to the modern style Brembo calipers. We have a custom caliper mount that slides with the wheel obviously in the frame when you're adjusting your chain tension. And then one of the craziest parts of the bike that usually you don't see, or I've never seen at least, is we incorporated a V12 Merlin engine airplane starter into the bike. And this is World War II era, presumably Spitfire model where it would have came out of. And this is actually one way to start the bike. You can start it with a hand crank, or you still have your standard kicker pedal here. You can spin the starter over. You pull this lever right here. It engages into a spool drive on the other side with a set of chains, and it actually spins the motor over at around 300 and some RPM and fires the bike up. The rest of the motor is actually all done here in-house as well by some of our teammates that helped build this bike. And then we modeled and 3D printed aluminum intake manifolds here, running dual linker M74Bs. And pretty much the only thing we didn't build on the entire bike was the wheels. Everything else is pretty much fabricated here. So. There was a lot of struggles like you would with any build. I think the biggest struggles for us were we had a lot of problems with the motor because the motor was in such bad shape. It was so badly pitted on the bottom. The motor came from Florida. Florida's known for salt and everything. So I think what was happening, he had water sitting in the bottom of that belly pan, and it really pitted up the bottom of the cases really bad. My buddy George and Gary, they literally worked on this motor for about 6 months just to get it to where you see now. And to build a bike for show quality, they had to put a ton of work into just polishing and making it look nice to present in a brand new frame. So that was a huge undertaking there. For me personally, like the stuff that I was doing, obviously built the tanks I built here, and that was a struggle because I had some not so nice metal. It was it caused me a lot of problems. There was a couple of days I almost threw the tanks because I was so mad at them. The front end was a challenge because I don't build front ends usually. The front ends that we usually deal with are like 1910 to 1920s Harleys. They're a lot smaller, a lot easier to work with. So this thing is like super beefy and stout. So I spent a ton of time on that, getting that right. But I would say like for me, those 2 things were probably the worst. And knock on wood, the rest of the bike actually went together pretty good. So. I'm pretty sure every time you take on a bike build, you're always learning something new. I definitely don't know everything. I don't think I'll ever know everything. But as far as fab work and stuff, everything was pretty much in my wheelhouse already. The biggest thing I learned is just, I guess, polishing, because I never really polished before. So this bike, I had to polish a lot of stuff. The whole frame's mirror polished, that kind of thing. So it took a little bit of a learning curve there. And I'm definitely not the best polisher in the world by any means. There's probably a lot of people who look at this and do it for a living that don't like it. But I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. I've always wanted to polish stuff, because it's kind of a hard thing to find. When people polish, you have to send it out or find somebody to do it for you. And like I said, we tried to do all this bike in-house as much as we could. It actually rides, I know it sounds bad, but it actually rides better than I thought it would. We rode it for the first time yesterday. I was really unsure about the front end because of the way the geometry is on it. You know, we were hoping there was going to be around an inch or so of travel, which there is. It springs pretty well. The rest of it's just a normal hardtail, but it went down the road really nice. It doesn't pull any direction, and for how heavy the bike is, it looks light, but it's pretty heavy. You know, it flings around really well, so I was pretty happy with the way it went down the road. Oh yeah, so there's a lot of people I want to thank. You know, you can't really do this without help. This is a hard thing to do, building a bike from the ground up. So first and foremost, I'd like to thank my wife. She puts up with all my stuff. There's a lot of late nights out here, tons and tons of stress, you know, trying to get this done for a deadline. So it was really hard to get it done in time to the level that I wanted to do it, because I don't want to do stuff without putting my best foot forward. So I wanted to thank her, you know, George Banks and Gary Ellis for the motor they built here. The other people is Kevin O'Neill. He deals with all my stuff, all my crazy harebrained ideas. Brian O'Neill always comes through with my paint. You know, the same thing, you know, you just tell him what you want, and all I really told him was, hey, we got to put scallops on this thing. You know, we brainstorm back and forth. And the last but not least, Tom Banks, he was willing to do whatever he could to get the bike together. You know, when we were really struggling at the end for parts and trying to get stuff, it's a whole team of people that build these things, and definitely don't ever want to take credit for, you know, being a one-man show, because it's not. It takes a lot to do this, so I appreciate everything those guys do.